Springfield Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting is called to order. Please stand and we'll say the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone and thank you for being here tonight. We will start with 1.2, the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on September 21st, 2021. Are there any corrections? No corrections. There's a motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Arnold. No corrections. We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 1.3 is our public hearing. Our first public hearing is Ordinance 21-26, an ordinance disconnecting water tap fees with the City of Greenbrier, Tennessee service area. If you would like to speak to this public hearing, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 2 minutes to speak. Anyone like to speak to this matter? If not, the public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2, Ordinance 21-27, ordinance rezoning 2 parcels located on Tom Austin Highway from agriculture district to multiple residential and office district. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. No one like to speak? Public hearing is closed. We'll move on to our legislative session. 2.1, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-24 on a third and final reading. Ordinance rezoning a portion of 1 parcel located in the West Hillcrest Drive from commercial services district to medium density residential district. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion made by Alderman Gregg, a second by Alderman Hubbard. Do you have questions on this? Comments? On a third and final reading? No comments? No questions? We're ready for a vote, please. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. 2.2, we're going to skip this. This is going to be under review because there is a court case that really needs to be looked at before we bring this back. 2.3, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-26 on a second reading. An ordinance discontinuing water tap fees for the City of Greenbrier, Tennessee service area. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Vice Mayor Harris. Any questions on this second reading?
It's past time to relieve them of this.
Yes, sir. Any questions for our staff? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.4, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-27 on a second reading. An ordinance rezoning 2 parcels located on Tom Austin Highway from agriculture district to multiple residential and office district. We have a motion made by Alderman Hubbard to discuss and a second by Alderman Gregg. Questions for the staff or discussion? Sir.
You don't have to comment on it. I was out there today and I just envisioned how beautiful it's going to be. And how this long struggle of trying to clear the bypass up is really going to, pay off.
Okay. Any questions? Alderman? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.5, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-28 on a first reading. An ordinance rescinding ordinance 01 2025-19 in its entirety and establishing a new schedule of rates and charges for the Springfield gas system. I'm going to call on Ms. Brickles to read the first reading.
Ordinance 21-28, an ordinance rescinding ordinance 01-19 in its entirety and establishing a new schedule of rates and charges for the Springfield gas system. Whereas it has become necessary to increase gas rates in order to pay for increased cost of operations and maintenance for the gas system, and whereas certain rates must be amended to properly reflect the variable cost of purchased gas, and whereas Article 4, Section 13 of the Charter for the City of Springfield requires that the establishment of fees and charges be accomplished through legislative action, which must be exercised by ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Springfield, Tennessee, that Ordinance 01-19 is hereby rescinded in its entirety and substituting a new schedule of rates and charges to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Be it further ordained that all ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only. This ordinance shall become effective on the first billing date after January 1st, 2022.
Thank you. We have a motion to discuss by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Gregg. And I'm going to call on Mr. Greg Riddle to talk about this first, our gas director.
Thank you, Mayor. As I stated in the memo, the current charges, which is the standard rate, has been in effect since 1994. Since then, as we've seen significant growth, and just due to that and the rising cost, operating costs, things of that nature, and I'll just give you a little bit of background. Since 1994, 27 years, back then we had 5,092 services, 220 miles of main and 14 employees. Move forward 27 years, now we've got 8,932 customers, which is about a 75% increase. 375.9 miles of main, and an additional 10 miles will be in by the end of this calendar year. We've added 3,840 services in 27 years. That's about 142 services per year average. So our growth is just, it's been through the roof. A 5.7 mile additional main each year for 27 years. Again, and just to give you an example, in the past 3 years, we've added 535 services. So as the system grows, so does the operating cost. We started noticing this, a decline in our net operating revenue. It kind of really started, I think, in 16 when we started the salary restructuring. We had 14 employees in 1994, now we've got 24. So it led me to want to commission a rate study since those rates have been in place that long. And so reached out to Mr. Robert Stegall with Hussey Gayville Engineering, and he's here prepared to speak on his findings.
Okay? You'll come to the mic, sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
See, bro.
Thank you.
Your turn. Thank you.
Thanks.
And before Robert gets started, I should have added this, that we started talking about this in 2019, and we actually got Robert started on it in January of 2020, and he had it prepared, ready for us in March. Matter of fact, March 23rd of 2020. But we all know what happened, and it just wasn't good timing to come to this board and during the pandemic and the economic times and things like that. So this is nothing, this has been developing a while, so
Sure.
I just wanted y'all to be aware of that.
Thank you for the explanation.
Okay, thank you. As Greg said, I'm Robert Stigall. I'm president of Hussey Gay Bell, Nashville, and had the privilege to work around Greg and some water and sewer work for the years, and I appreciate the confidence that you've had in me in the past. When I was, going through, I guess, the income or loss for the audits, I pulled off, probably 12 years' worth of audits, and I plotted the first one, which was, it was kind of an eye-opener to me. It kind of demonstrated to me what Greg was talking about. Back in 09, 10, 11, making, pretty good net revenues, but you can see that they've kind of cratered and flattened out, save for 1 year, basically in the last 9 years. And the more you grow, the bigger your gas bill that you have to pay to keep the services steadily increases. And if your revenue and your balance and your balance sheet is not growing at the same rate that your customers are, you've got a little bit of perhaps financial liability out there. And if you look at the second page, this is what I guess I'm a little bit concerned about, and while we're here, we had, if you look back from 2000 to 2010, we had a lot of spikes in the volatility of natural gas pricing. We've been very fortunate since about 2010 or 11 that the gas prices are down and they're stable. They're in the $4 range as average. They might get down to 2 or 3, up to 6, but you don't see those 15 or 16 dollar per MMBTU prices. But if that was to occur again, with the number of customers you have out now, by the time you bill and get your revenue, you could be 2 months out from the time that you pay your bill that you get it back in. So whereas your January bill now that you pay may be $500,000 or $600,000, that could go to $2 million, really quickly. You do that for a couple of months, and you in my opinion, you don't want to be in a position to borrow money to operate on. If you want to borrow money for capital costs, that's something that this board, would decide to do. But you don't want to get yourself in a position where you have to borrow money to, to pay your bills. So, and then on the last page, it's in your handout. This is a piece of the pie that the typical gas customer, pays. You have a cost of gas, which is shown in the green, that none of us in this room can do anything about, and that makes up about 68% of any customer's bill. And then you operate on this adder that's, at this time, was 31.6% of a customer's bill. So we're not changing anything to the price of gas. None of us can control that, but you operate on the yellow piece of the pie, or 32% of someone's bill, and so that's what Greg has and I have recommended that you adjust.
Okay? Questions while he's still at the mic? Mr. Hubbard?
You did a good job, but I'm going to have to kind of make a statement that I think all American cities should make a statement, because we're still being held hostage by OPEC, and I'm a roughneck from the oil fields in South Texas, and all those wells are not pumping, you see, and it really upsets me, because I know you have to buy from that region, and it just drives the cost up.
Yes, sir. And we lost some.
I'm perturbed by that.
Yes,
okay?
you lost some production when gasoline prices got so cheap. A lot of people couldn't afford to be in the business, and now we're seeing, which is even more relevant, because since we've done this, it's not part of this, but the gas prices, natural gas prices are starting to spike up, which is a little bit more concerning.
And I'm sure you've been in the, say, from Austin all the way down through Caldwell County, Gonzales County area, right? I'm sure you've been there.
Been through Austin and Houston a few times, yes, sir.
Okay, well, you know all those
Yes, sir.
wells are sitting there, understand me, and not pumping. And I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
making any money off the 10 acres I got there.
right?
That's why I had to make that comment.
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
Yes, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
This is probably to Greg. Of the roughly 2,000 houses or units that's been approved, do you have any idea how many possibly will be using gas?
I don't have a definite, but we do have what we call a subdivision agreement in place where we offer developers, the incentive to install gas, and if they'll install, 75% of the houses on a 5 or more lot subdivision, 75% or more of the houses with a heating appliance and one other gas using appliance, we install all the infrastructure for free. And we've had good success with that because that's a selling point for most of them. But as far as these new developments, I've not got a guarantee on those yet. We anticipate them taking advantage of it because it's a really good deal because they don't pay for the main, they don't pay for the service. All they do is pay for the customer service charges, setting the meters and things like that. It's a really good incentive for and most developers, I've got developers reaching out to me left and right that right now we've got them on the books, we just can't get to them.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Good question. Yes, sir, Mr. Trotter.
I'm just curious, what's the big difference that happened between 2013 and 2014 to cause that, reminders of that big spike? What caused that?
I pulled this off of the audit, and what I'm gonna guess, and I didn't research this, but I'm gonna guess we may have had a colder than, that's one thing I should have mentioned. Not only are your costs going up, but our winters have not been as cold as a whole recently. We've had some spikes of cool weather, but not sustained cold winters and what they call the degree days. I'm gonna say that was probably a spike up in a cool winter
Okay.
that caused that excess volume, because that's another problem that we have trying to set these rates, is we don't know what our throughput's gonna be. It just all depends on, well, largely, you have a lot of good industry, which is a base, but most of it depends on how cold is it, how long does it stay cold. So I'm gonna say that was probably a cooler heating season through there than we had in some of the other ones.
Just blame it on Tennessee weather.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hopefully it'll be an easy winter this time. Yes, sir.
You may have stated it, but if so, state it again. What's the average increase to the homeowner? What's our, if we approve this?
I run a few sample bills just to give you an idea. I run for example, a city residential rate. Currently, and what I did, I took the months of November through March. We call it Novy through March in the gas business. That's our traditional
When you sell all your
high
gas.
usage. And I used an average usage of 93 CCF, and I compared it with the old rate and what we're proposing. The old rate, and I used October rates that y'all are gonna see tonight, because that's the most current rates. For example, a house, on the average, would use 93 CCF. For the first 6 CCF, the minimum bill now for $4, you get 6 CCF. So you would be billed 87 CCF, and with the $4 minimum, you'd see a $63.79 bill. On the new proposed rates, same usage. However, because the minimum bill would be $6 versus $4, you get more. You get 3 more CCF for that minimum. So I used 84 CCF, and I'm a minimum bill of $6. Your bill would be $66.88, a difference of $3.10 increase, or 4.85% on an average city residential rate. County rates, very similar, except the county rate is a little higher just because that's the way the typical fee structure is set up, because it costs us more to serve out in the county. And same numbers, County bill would be $84.75 on the old rate versus the new, it would be $91.04, which is an increase of $6.29 a month, or a 7.42% increase.
And then you stated also that, explain that subdivision agreement again that you stated a moment ago.
Well, that subdivision agreement it's been in place forever, but if we have a developer that wants to develop 5 or more lots, we will agree to install all the infrastructure, mains, and services if we've got a main adjacent to it. Now, it can't be 5 miles down the road, but if it's easily accessible, we will, if they agree to put 75% of the houses on natural gas heating appliance and one other gas appliance, we will install all that at no cost to the developer. And all they'll be responsible for is the meter set fees and the customer fees that customer service charges.
Any idea what that normal infrastructure would cost them if we weren't covering that?
It just depends on where you're at. You know, we can, typically in the gas business, you look at a 20 or less year payback on infrastructure enhancements and improvements, main extensions and things like that. If we do them, you know, it's very, very cheap. It's a whole lot less than 20-year payback. Our goal is to gain customers because we can buy a pipe as a municipal quite a bit cheaper than a contractor or usually anybody else. So that's our main focus, is gaining customers, because the more customers we have, the more volume of gas that we can buy, that we're participating with TAC, we get a greater discount. So it just helps everybody.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? No further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.6, discuss and possible take action on Ordinance 21-28 on a first reading. Or ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the City of Springfield zoning ordinance pertaining to event houses. Will you please read this?
Ordinance 21-29, an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Springfield zoning ordinance pertaining to event house requirements in the historic district. Whereas a request has been made to amend the requirements to have an event house in the historic district of Springfield, Tennessee, and whereas Springfield's event house requirements will ensure that all future event houses add value to the city, and whereas the Springfield Regional Planning Commission recommends that the Springfield zoning ordinance be amended for event house requirements in the historic district. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 11-513 of the Springfield zoning ordinance entitled Historic Zoning District is hereby amended by amending subsection B entitled Special Provisions for Bed and Breakfast Establishments, Museums, and Event Houses in the Historic District to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you, Ms. Breckles. The motion was made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss this. You want to speak?
Sure. You want me to
Our
talk?
city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a brand-new ordinance, and to kind of give you some context around this, we allow event houses in the historic district as a conditional use. But currently, we have a lot size restriction of 20,000 square feet. So you have to have a minimum square foot lot of 20,000 to be able to apply for the permit to have an event house. We had a request from someone excuse me, who recently purchased a house in the historic district to do this, and that's what kind of made this surface, the 20,000 square foot lot restriction. This house is uniquely situated, most likely if they can meet the rest of the criteria to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and get one of those permits to do that. But the lot size restriction was a barrier to that, and really in examining that and in talking with Ms. Barty as well, the lot size restriction might be a violation of the law with regard to land use. Could be a questionable restriction that's kind of arbitrary because there may be some lots that are larger than or smaller than 20,000 square feet that may be more situated to be event houses than those that are larger. So we're recommending to remove the lot size restriction, not to allow anyone to do event houses. It's not going to be open season on event houses in the historic district. Anyone would still have to meet the rest of the criteria, still have to apply to the Board of Zoning Appeals, who would vet that request and then issue a permit because it is a conditional use. So if anybody
Okay.
has any questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Harris.
On that permit that they obtain, is that a per event permit, or is that a standing permit for a period of time?
It's a standing permit allowing the use in that classification. So with zoning, you have uses that are by right, meaning if you're zoned in that classification, you can do all of these things, and you have conditional uses, which they would apply for to get a conditional use, so there may be conditions attached to it. Like this, there's additional
But
criteria.
each event, they do not have to obtain
No.
a permit.
Mr. Trotter.
Is there event house in a way related to our Airbnb, or is it something totally different?
No, sir, the Airbnb are kind of the short-term, they call them short-term rentals.
Right.
Event houses would be more of those places that would host a wedding or a birthday party or something like that.
Showers.
Shower's a great example.
Do you buy this permit annually, or is it a one-time deal?
It's a one-time deal, and you don't purchase it. You just apply for the Board of Zoning Appeals to allow you to use your property in that manner.
There's some pretty good events going on Airbnb.
And they have a business license to do this, or?
It's a venture, it's a business venture, so you would have to be a business operating in that regard.
Other questions? No other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm trying to ask, if, say, for instance, I had a house here in the historic district, and I want
Yes,
to handle a wedding, would I need permission from the neighbors and stuff like that?
So-
I guess I'm trying to say, would I be infringing upon on their particular rights?
So if you look at the criteria that we already have adopted and
Right,
established,
I know.
it prohibits, if you were gonna create more traffic or create issues for the neighborhood, then you wouldn't be getting the permit.
Okay.
That's
right.
Excuse me. Because no traffic shall be generated by such event house in greater volumes than would normally be expected in the residential neighborhood. There's restrictions on how many off-street parking spaces you can use. So you can't create a problem in the neighborhood. And so when you go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to try to get that permit, you would have to demonstrate to them that you can meet all of these criteria, and you're not gonna mess up the neighborhood, basically.
It's, I occasionally drive our historical district. You really don't have much space.
You don't.
You really, especially, say, Garner Street, for instance. I barely could squeeze my little Camry through there, let alone.
Well, two cars can't go through at the same time.
Two cars cannot.
Right.
And we travel that because we use the greenway so much, and that's another issue
It's an issue.
that we should talk about.
I do think, though, the homes that are being proposed for this are not on those side streets. I think they're primarily on Fifth or Main, it's like the main thoroughfares, right?
We do, so the person that caused this issue to surface, that approached us, the house is on Fifth, and it's a lot size that's smaller than 20,000 square feet, but it's uniquely situated to be an event house because of its access to parking, and the fact that it's on Fifth Avenue and it's not in the middle of the neighborhood on a side street, and that's where the equitable situation of the arbitrary and capriciousness of the 20,000 square foot lot size restriction kind of surfaced.
But do you really have that on Fifth Avenue? Do you really have that parking, that open parking
Well, they're not gonna
area?
be parking on the street.
No, sir, they would have access to, if they got permission, they would have access to the library, to the middle school, some areas that
Well,
would.
that's the only way I could really see,
Right.
because it's
You're
really.
gonna have to walk. Yes, sir.
Just to make sure that I understand it, the way it's presently set, they have to have 20,000 square foot.
Correct.
lot. On that present structure, is there a designated number of people that can occupy that space? And if we're doing away with the 20,000 square foot, is it just open for any amount of people? Or, I mean, if you may have an event that may have 50 people, you may have an event that's got 1,000 people.
You'd have to do it for the fire marshals.
But that's also gonna create, what you just said, more traffic and, if it's causing more havoc in that community, and it's only in the historical district, correct?
That's right.
But it's gonna, if you got a 500 people event compared to a 20 people event, yeah, you're gonna have more traffic in that area.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this house has had quite a few huge parties.
I don't
In the
know.
past.
Oh, by private owners, I think,
Yes.
yeah. But I think that here it says that only a portion of the house can be used, right? And then, so that would be like if you own a business, you know, you're told what the max occupancy in the business is. And I believe that only up to 15% of the house?
It's 15%, no more than 3 rooms or
Yeah.
15%.
So they can't use the entire house.
Yeah, whichever is the most restrictive is the way the ordinance currently reads. The current ordinance is pretty restrictive. You can use no more than 3 rooms or 15% of the house. So if
What about the yard?
That's what,
you are allowed to use the yard of, find that. But you can't violate the area, the setback and yard requirements. So, a site plan is required, and if Mr. Brewer wants to talk about, if you wanted to, it's his department that sort of handles this, if he has anything to add, on the details.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Harris, to kind of address the size of the venues, this is definitely, event houses are not the venue to have a 200-person event. That's not going to fit this bill. You know, these are for, you know, wedding receptions, small wedding receptions, baby showers, bridal showers, that kind of things. Christmas parties, small office gathering for Christmases and things like that. So the big thing here that I want for you, the board, to take away is this is a conditional use. If it becomes a problem, that conditional use can be removed by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So the changes that, you know, Springfield has grown. We've seen tremendous changes in that area. As Mr. Martin pointed out, you know, we now have the Stokes Brown Public Library, which is substantially more parking in that area than we previously had. The house that has brought about this request is very close to the middle school, as previously mentioned. So there's, you know, for like a 30-person venue, it has more than adequate parking. You know, you can make provisions depending on what the Board of Zoning Appeals wants to put on conditionally, but you know, valet parking and things of that nature. So, you know, we've only got one event house currently in Springfield in the historic district. It's the Carousel House. The house across the street used to have a conditional use, but it sold, and conditional uses go with the owner and not the property because they are home occupancies by the zoning ordinance as well. So, you know, it just doesn't change hands. Now, each person, if they continue or want to continue to do an event house, will have to come to the Board of Zoning Appeals, agree to the previous plan, or submit a new plan that will allow them to continue to operate in a fashion that doesn't negatively impact the neighborhoods.
All right, so then state it one more time, by taking this 20,000 requirement off, is allowing them to do exactly what?
It allows them to have a small event venue space in their yard using 3 rooms or 15% of the house for the event.
And the way it's presently said, it allows them to do what?
Same thing. Presently, there's only
They
like,
weren't allowed.
Yeah, it doesn't change the use, you're just not
Yeah.
allowed to apply for the permit if your lot size isn't at least 20,000
yeah,
square feet.
presently, only 2 lots in the entire historic district meet that 20,000 square foot requirement.
So their lot size is just keeping them from applying for the permit.
Correct. Not the house size, but the lot size.
Okay, other questions?
But we can be assured that if problems occur from this, it will be addressed.
Absolutely, and so in the requirements section, and these are the current requirements, these aren't new, so these requirements that you have in Exhibit A are just the amended requirements to remove the lot size restriction, but if you look at Exhibit A, Section N, if the event house establishment becomes a nuisance to the neighborhood, the conditional use permit can be revoked by the BZA. So that's not a new, those are the way the regulations are now, and that will stay the same. The only thing that's changing with this proposed ordinance is removing the lot size restriction to allow folks to become eligible that currently are not.
Yes, sir. And one other thing, that applies to any conditional use.
Yeah.
Any conditional use can be removed if it becomes an issue at any time by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So, you know, our Board of Zoning Appeals plays a very important part in the administration of our zoning ordinance, and we have to have faith, and I do, that they will do an excellent job in administrating our ordinance.
Okay, other questions? Thank you, Mr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion before we're ready for a vote? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, Ms. Brickles. 2.7, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-30 on a first reading. Ordinance amending Title 18, Chapter 3 of the Springfield Municipal Code pertaining to the NPDES permit limits at the wastewater treatment plant. We have a motion by Alderman Hubbard to discuss and a second by Vice Mayor Harris. Ms. Brickles, if you'll read this.
Ordinance 21-30, an ordinance amending Title 18, Chapter 3 of the Springfield Municipal Code regarding NPDES wastewater permit limits. Whereas the City of Springfield operates under a State of Tennessee approved National Pollutant Discharge and Elimination System, which is NPDES, permit number TN 002491, and whereas the City of Springfield has a Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, TDEC, approved industrial pretreatment program for wastewater, and whereas Section 3.2A9 of the approved NPDES permit requires regular updates of numeric limits called local limits and plant protection criteria from the State of Tennessee, and whereas the proposed updates have been approved by the TDEC and require adoption by the city. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Springfield as follows. Table 1 of Section 18-304 2D of the Springfield Municipal Code is hereby rescinded in its entirety and replaced with the new Table 1 to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. Mr. Terry Beers, I'm sure you can come on up to the mic. He's the director for this department, and I'm sure we'll all have some questions about this. Questions?
Give us
Yes,
the
sir.
lowdown.
Pardon?
What's the lowdown?
This is the state of Tennessee requires that on an NPDES permit, they'll come in and they'll evaluate your plant. Then you have to submit some information to them and they approve that. Then you have to get those back as far as, okay, we've accepted that from the city of Springfield, then it needs to go into our municipal code. But it's just protectionary limits for a plant. The pretreatment program, when company or business can't meet those limits, then that's the protection area that we have for the intake, what's coming into the plant.
Okay. Other questions while he's at the mic? He's got job security. Nobody else wants his job, so.
Yeah, the things coming in.
Any other questions?
Keep my water good, keep it safe.
He got our water working on Saturday in the early morning hours. We appreciate that.
It always seems to be on Saturday too, right?
And always, they have to have that overtime on Saturdays. I get up to go running and there's no water in my house. But by the time I got back, there was water. Any questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.8, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 21-31 on a resolution declaring certain property surplus and authorizing the disposal of such properties. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Hubbard. Any questions on this routine matter? No questions, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, 2.9, we will be skipping because of the need to look into the court issue. We'll go to our administrative session. 3.1, discuss and possible take action on the adjustment to the retail electric rates of the Springfield Electric Department due to the wholesale fuel cost adjustment by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion made by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Vice Mayor Harris. Mr. Steve Sachs, you have good news?
Well, I don't, it's that time.
Why
of year-
not?
It's that time of year when rates go up slightly, so we have a 2.3% increase for this coming month, which will result in between $1.63 and $2.55 per customer average.
Which is coming from the Tennessee Valley Authority.
That's correct.
Any questions?
And this is because of fuel?
It's based on their, variable cost of natural gas, oil, coal, uranium, all the things they use to generate electricity from.
Okay. Other questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.2, discuss and possible take action on the adjustment of the monthly gas rates of the Springfield Gas Department. We need a motion to discuss. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Hubbard. Mr. Riddle.
I wish I had good news. The purchase gas adjustment's up 7.76%. Just to give you an idea of what's going on in the market, and I think I owe you all this explanation and everybody that, you know, natural gas prices up. This time last year, October 1st, 2020, the average gas price was $1.94 thousand MMBtu. This month, 2021, 12 months, $5.68 average. So that's the first of the month index. The market is just, you know, it's just trending upward, you know, it's falling, you know, the petroleum market.
Like the
Steve-
groceries.
Steve mentioned their electric going up, you know, when you got roughly 38% of your cogen plants fueled by, or 38% of that coming from natural gas. So just energy prices in a whole is increasing.
Everything's increasing. Any questions before we vote? Sir?
Hi. These hurricanes, did they really affect that offshore drilling a lot? Did that?
No, sir, not really, because a lot of folks don't understand now, most of our gas, where we're situated in Tennessee, we're kind of zero neutral on the pipeline.
Okay.
The pipeline coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, Houston, Louisiana, all the way up to New York State. A lot of that gas is coming back down from the northeast, well, you know, out of where they fracked all that gas. So the majority of our gas, where we're located in our zone, 0 to 1 zone, that area,
Make
we're
it
getting our
Thank
gas
you.
from the northeast. So
Fracking.
they might portray that hurricane is doing that, but in reality, no, what's killing us is exports. Mexico is buying so much liquid natural gas now going over to Europe. They're paying $21, $22 a thousand for, and they're glad to do it just because they don't have the infrastructure.
True.
That's hurting us, and then the shutting down of pipelines and making the permitting a little bit more difficult. You know, all that, it's all intertwined.
And travel was up a lot more this year than it was last year too in October, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so take advantage of that.
Okay. Other questions? We're ready for a vote. Thank you, Mr. Riddle. Anyone like to change their vote? Oh, Ms. Arnold. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.3, discuss and possible take action on an offer from Adam Huffner in the amount of $85,000 to purchase 5.74 acres in the North Industrial Park. Do we have a motion? Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Hubbard. And if you don't remember who Adam is, he owns Maker's Table, and he has done a lot of stuff for our community.
He's really a nice gentleman.
He is a very nice gentleman. He's the one that did all the stuff, at the park, the signs, the tennis court. That's just a little background on him. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I think he's a perfect example of what we want to see happen in the city of Springfield.
Absolutely.
Come in here and
Exactly.
took something from the ground up and has built it into something that he's wanting to build a 12,000 square foot facility. And I'll be more than glad to sell him this piece of property.
He's been so
It is
good
business.
for our city and our county. He's amazing. Any questions?
Mayor, I think we need to explain one aspect of the offer.
Yes,
And
sir.
I think our assistant city manager can do that.
Ms. Tillman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to point out to you, we are asking that the additional .74 acres is conveyed to him, and that's to serve two purposes. One, we anticipate future development behind this property, and if we were to not include that, it could result in a strip of land that the city would maintain. Second, it also gives Adam access to the sewer line, and then that would prevent him from having to get an easement from the city and then us conveying it to him then. So, serves two purposes.
It's kind of a housekeeping matter.
So the .74 is basically at no cost to him.
Right, because we have it priced at 17 an acre. He wants 5 acres, and we need him to take that other .74. It makes sense for both
And
parties.
this 17 an acre has been set by this board to
Yes.
accept on this property. That's no problem.
Okay? Other questions? No other questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.4, discuss and possible take action to approve the 2021-22 Community-Based Traffic Safety Enforcement and Education Grant in the amount of $20,000 for the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. We need a motion to discuss. Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second by Alderman Hubbard. Have questions about this grant that was in our packet?
He's doing a good job.
Yes, thank you. Any discussion? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.5, discuss and possible take action to approve the proposal for the civil engineering inspection for the William A. Batson Parkway extension in the amount of $883,000 from CSR Engineering, Inc. of Pleasant View, Tennessee. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss this. We certainly want this to move forward.
I am so glad that we're at this point. And I would love to see a bulldozer at least by February.
How many years have we talked about this?
16 years roughly. Well, I know.
We've been talking about it, I've been here for,
Yeah.
long time. Any questions?
When are we actually looking at starting this project?
Whew, ASAP. Mr. Moore?
It is currently in TDOT's hands right now, and we are waiting for the final review. We have checked all the boxes, we give them everything they could possibly think of,
And then some.
and then some. And so I'm hoping within the next month, we should get the, hey, you're good to go. We can go to bid, and depending on the weather, they should start soon.
Mr. Trotter will be
Mr.
on
Hubbard
the hill
said,
tomorrow.
I'd
He
love
can
to
talk
see it by February.
We got enough going on up there, please.
Okay, other questions? I'd say we better vote on this quick. We don't want it to go away. No other discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.6, discuss and possible take action on a request to enter into a contract with TDOT to receive funds from the Surface Transportation Block Grant in the amount of $203,901.96 to apply to the William A. Batson Extension Project. A motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Questions? Well, let's get the money, that's right. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, Ms. Brickles. 3.7, discuss and possible take action on a proposal from Gresham Smith to conduct a fiber-to-home study. A motion made by Alderman Hubbard to discuss and a second by Alderman Arnold. I think we're gonna call on Mr. Steve Sachs with our electric director to come to the mic.
Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about one of my favorite subjects in the last few months. I see some smiles because most of you have heard me talking about this. At the retreat we had back in the spring, one of the questions was, could we get into a fiber optic system using the backbone that we already have in place from the other projects you've approved dealing with metering and our SCADA system. So at that time I said there was a three-legged stool. We have legal questions, we have engineering questions, and we have a business plan. Can we make money? Can we pay our bills? So we've spent some time now looking at the legal questions, and we have answers. We have good answers. We have opportunities. We don't have a clear, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. We have some options, but clearly all those options are acceptable to the committee that's working on this. So that moved us to the next step, which is our engineering work. And Gresham Smith is a company that's been around for a long, long time, but they've gotten into the fiber optic system in the last few years. They've hired some retired AT&T engineers, put them back to work, and they're doing fiber work for a lot of cities in central Tennessee area. So we'd like to enter into this agreement to get a preliminary engineering study done on how we're actually going to do this, what wires are going to connect where, and how this is going to work, how much this is going to cost. And then once we have that number, then we can start developing a business plan of how we build this, what kind of prices we'll have to our customers, and what kind of cash flow will we generate. So we're almost to the end of the train, to the railroad track, I mean to the end of the train track. But we've got to get our engineering work done, and that's what this recommendation's for.
Okay? Questions while he's at the mic?
This does not exceed 30,000, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's right.
And how long proposing it will take them to do this?
We're hoping 6 weeks. We're hoping pretty quick. That's pretty aggressive for us engineers, but I think we can do it.
Any other questions?
Can I add something?
Yes, sir.
Mayor?
Happy to be here.
Mr. Sachs put together a meeting, Ms. Barty attended, and we had a great meeting with an attorney out of Chattanooga that's really kind of gave us some guidance on this and part of our research process. One of the questions you all had asked me that we kind of wanted to get an answer to is, how could this benefit the general fund? And so this would have to be set up as its own utility. It would be set up as a separate utility in its own enterprise fund. The benefit to the general fund would come in lieu of tax payments that would be made, just like the rest of our utilities do to the general fund.
Right.
So we would get an increased, there's a couple different ways, as Steve said, that you can run this, but if we ran it as part and parcel of the electric department, the same way we kind of run water and wastewater out of the same house, even though those are two completely separate utilities. If we ran electric and fiber out of the same house, then the in lieu of tax payments that the electric department pays would go up to the general fund.
Questions?
We've worked with this before.
I have worked with this before. I have never gotten I got to the edge, but I've never gotten as far as we have here. The people we have working with us have taken this all the way through to an actual project, and they've got a utility running now in other cities. So I feel comfortable we can do this. The thing I liked when we talked to the lawyers, they were saying that funds that fiber to the home system might generate could be an additional 60 or 70 or 80% in lieu of taxes to the city as electric pays you now. So that could be some significant income if we can do that. It also will help share in the billing cost. All of the overhead costs that we have will be split by another utility. So not trying to say this is the golden goose,
No.
but it's certainly a way of helping maintain our cost, provide excellent service to our customers, and give our consumers something that they want. Mr. Harris, our consumers want high-speed internet, and they're just restricted by the opportunities we have at this time.
In your knowledge of this, though, do you see this as something that can be provided cheaper to our citizens than what we're paying some of these various companies now?
Well, my experience is based on my home in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and I had a $350 a month bill from Comcast that I changed to an $80 a month bill with high-speed internet from AT&T. I've got fiber to the home, and then I added a video package, which is $60 a month. So I've cut my AT&T, between AT&T and my on-demand video package, I've cut my entertainment package in half.
Well, and I know that Hopkinsville, Kentucky's been doing this for a long time in their electric department.
Correct.
It's something that we could do as a city. How far out would you see that?
I would think we
Yes,
could get
yes.
started with, if we were sitting in a vote today, and you all said go do this, I think we could have some customers working within a year.
Wow.
Good news, hopefully.
Now, I always have to say this, so you understand where I am. My heart's in the electric world. And when my bill, on my electric bill at home is $150 a month, $160 a month, and my entertainment bill is $350 a month, and my telephone bills are another $200 a month, there's something not quite balanced in my life, but that's the true story of the way I work.
It is, isn't it?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I can add one more thing. So we talked about the benefit to the general fund. There could be an added benefit to the electric department and the electric fund and our electric customers, because similar to the way we do water, wastewater, where our water and wastewater construction crews, their salaries are split 60% to the water department, 40% to the wastewater department. With TVA involved, we would develop that percentage of what part of our crews would be, our electric crews would be devoted to the electric fund versus the fiber fund. So that lessens the overhead for electric as well. And so we could save a little and maybe be able to save on our electric rates for our customers with that set.
And
Yes,
Mr. Harris, I don't want my comment to sound just some pipe dream. I couldn't make that statement that we could have homes connected in a year if we didn't have 7.5 miles of fiber optic cable already in the air.
Right.
That Robert Gardner and people preceding me took care of. So my hat's off to you and my hat's off to them, but we need to take advantage of that.
Okay, Mr. Hubbard?
I'm sorry.
You sort of answered what I said. We do have trained people in the electric department
We do.
that can deal with this already.
We do.
Yeah.
And there's training programs, gosh, there were probably a dozen training programs this year for us to send people to if we wanted to. So the electric world is now moving into this technology world. And the idea is it's just electrons. We've been selling electrons for years to heat and cool your house. Now we're selling electrons to entertain you. So that's kind of the short story of it.
When it comes down, you have to have that electricity to make all that stuff work.
You absolutely do. Absolutely do.
That's the story of that game.
But I'm pleased to be here, and I'm pleased to help you with this project. So far, so good. We're being very cautious and very careful to make sure this really works the way it's supposed to. But as the mayor said, there's lots of cities doing this. We're not on the bleeding edge of this. We're actually sort of in the middle of the pack. Yes, sir.
Mr. Trotter?
Oh, I just thought ready for a vote.
Oh, okay. Mr. Hubbard's got a question.
No, you alluded to Hopkinsville, but Glasgow, Kentucky
All of them have it
Yes.
up in there.
has been doing
Yeah.
this for years.
They've had it for over 15
They
years.
were number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you
We're re-
very much.
Thank you. We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Mr. Hubbard got it. Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.8, discuss and possible take action on ratifying the emergency purchase of the electric department. We certainly don't want them to be without equipment.
No way.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Questions?
Give them what they need.
No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
We are ready for our consent doc.
Mayor, without objection, move to take as one.
Yes, sir? Any objection? Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Hubbard. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
I'm sure that our city manager will talk about Friday night market, but I'm going to say it too and let him repeat it, because if I haven't seen you at Friday night market, this is the most fun we have in the city of Springfield. Friday night on the square from 6 to 9. Our Fall Family Festival, this is our last one from 6 to 9, put on by the historic Springfield Events Coordinator. I hope to see each and every one of you there. Our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. It is a good time, and that's perfectly fine. Maybe if you promote it, we can, more people that haven't shown up will come, but we usually
I shall shame them.
a pretty good crowd there, and it's going to be a good time with the Fortunate Sons and Mr. Perry's School of Rock performing. So that's this Friday night. This is a postponement from the October 1st Friday Night Market due to COVID, which is a good segue into our current COVID situation right now. It has improved dramatically in the county. We had our COVID-19 task force call this afternoon, and Randy Davis, the CEO of TriStar Northcrest, reported that situation's improved locally, it's improved regionally, it's improved statewide, and so we're very, very thrilled for that news, because the situation, as you know, was pretty bleak for a while. On a bit of good news, we've had a huge economic boost in the last month for Springfield. Most of you know that our golf course, the Legacy, hosted the Austin Peay Women's Collegiate Invitational. In that tournament, 10 women's college golf teams that were made up of universities from 5 different states participated in that tournament. They with a Saturday, Sunday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is when they were there. We checked with our local hotels, and all of our hotels were full. So our hotels, restaurants got a big boost out of that, and that was a big deal. We also, at J. Travis Price Park this past weekend, hosted the, hope I don't butcher this, Springfield Cyclo Cross, which is a bicycle racing event, a pretty big bicycle racing event, which had dozens of participants. It's a USA Cycling sanctioned event. They reported to Mr. Martin that they appreciated the venue, and that filled up, hotels and restaurants and things around here as well. So Springfield is a happening place, and of course it will be, as the mayor said, this Friday night. So
Which is also sponsored by the Springfield Parks and Recreation.
that's right.
I let them out.
That's okay. We give them enough credit, don't we? Well, we talk about them every month.
Always give Terry his props.
One thing, city manager.
Well, but we're spending money on having this event along with the Springfield coordinators.
That's right.
So I left them out.
That's okay.
I really want to thank you for that special need fish out that you had Saturday.
That was good.
We're not leaving anyone out.
No, we're back to our city manager.
And that's right. Thank you, Mr. Hovind, for pointing that out. It was a big deal on Saturday. Those families all appreciated that. With the opening of the inclusive playground and the special needs fishing rodeo, you're right. I mean, we don't want to leave any citizen unserved, and that's what we want to do. So thank you for pointing that out, and kudos, I guess, to Mr. Martin again for doing what they do.
We never say that to Mr. Beers.
I want to give kudos to, I want to give kudos to our police and fire departments. They do a great job.
Oh, yeah.
Give somebody else credit for a change.
Give Mr. Beers kudos, he got our water back.
I gave him kudos earlier.
Public work.
And another bit of good news, sales tax. So we, you know, with COVID spiking like it did, we were anxiously awaiting to see what sales tax was going to do the very first year. We budgeted very conservatively, so this is somewhat attributable to that. But we're already $250,000 ahead of budget on local option sales tax. And that was last month's numbers. Maybe this week or early next week, we'll have the new numbers. So we're really thrilled. That's a pretty good economic indicator of what's going on around here, as well as the unemployment rate. For those of you that don't know, and I haven't seen an October number, but the September number, the unemployment rate for Robertson County was 3.3%, one of the lowest in the state. And so we've got a good economic situation here in Springfield and Robertson County, and we're very appreciative of that. I sent you an email about paving downtown. That's going to begin this week. Just a reminder, we're going to be doing a public outreach to let all of our downtown businesses, the merchants, the law firms, and things know that what's going to go on and kind of what that schedule looks like. But that begins on the 21st. We're going to start down on North Main. So don't want to panic because October 22nd is the event. So we're going to start down on North Main on the far end and work toward downtown. That way it doesn't affect the permitted event this Friday night. Okay, here's what we need to discuss with you all really quickly. So we have an appeal that has been filed from the Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals for a slum clearance. You all haven't done one of these since about 2015, I think was the last one, and that was the Gurgis property, the Creamery, which finally got on the ground. So we're glad that happened. I would propose to you to have that next month at your regular November meeting. Generally, those things have been done, or occasionally they've been done on the regular meeting agenda. There's no requirement for that, so I would also recommend that we do that either before or immediately after the meeting, and that way we can dismiss anybody that's there for public, because the last one I think took about 35 to 40 minutes. That way anybody, once the regular business meeting is adjourned, everybody that's not there for the hearing can be dismissed and you all can go into the hearing. It's whatever the pleasure of this board is, whatever you'd like to do, but that's a suggestion that we would offer, and certainly to do it on the same day since you all don't have to group back up or try to come on another day. So,
Before.
Do it at the end of that meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Anybody object to that can't be here? Okay, we're all good with that.
we'll advertise that. We have to do the due process and notice requirements to do that, so we will advertise that to begin at we'll come up with the wording, but immediately after at 7 p.m. or immediately after the November regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So thank you all for that, and we'll provide you with.
Open or closed?
It's open. It's a public meeting, and we'll provide you with the, and equip you with the documentation ahead of time for that as well. One more thing, we can report you all approved the capital outlay note issuance, I think last month, and we did accept a 2.5% bid from F&M Bank on those notes for the gas department vehicles. We had 3 banks bid on the notes. The rates were really good, and F&M was the lowest at 2.5%. We'll close on those next Thursday, October 28th. And then finally, reminder about next Tuesday night, the system development fee meeting. I know that a couple of you can't make it, so we're going to record that and make that available to you. But the system development fee study meeting is here in this boardroom next Tuesday at 5:30. We'll have the stakeholder meeting, which is our builders and developers, that will be in here at 4 o'clock to meet with the consultants at Tischler Bice prior to that. So they'll get input from them, and then they'll inform and get input from you all. So, Mayor, that's all I have.
Okay. I have 2 things. Thank you to all the employees. You all do an excellent job. I know we pick on some of the department heads from time to time, good or bad, whichever way you fall. You do a super job, and I thank you for what you do each and every day. Second, spend your money local. It comes back into our budget. It helps our streets. If you can buy it in Springfield and Robertson County, make a purchase here. I know we all from time to time go outside of the city of Springfield because we need to venture out, but shop local. Christmas is coming. Meeting is adjourned.